In this webinar, we're going to discuss body image. We just want to disclose that some of the things we're talking about are quite sensitive and actually outside our scope as nearly practicing dietitians. But body image does impact what we eat and our relationship with food, so it's important to discuss nonetheless. We're going to share our thoughts and own personal experiences as young adults, as well as provide some trustworthy resources on how to navigate these conversations with your kids. So the overarching goal of this webinar is to start an open conversation. We're going to touch base on why body image is important and how a poor body image and sense of self can lead to unhealthy eating habits. Alongside parent diet influences, which we spoke about in the last webinar, influence from friends and social media can also impact a person's body image. Some of the tips provided in this webinar are taken from resources published by the Butterfly Foundation. We've provided links to these resources in the description. So to start this webinar, I'm just going to talk about my own experience with body image. So this photo is of me when I was in year 7 or 8. Obviously now I think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with this photo, but at the time I was really unhappy with how I looked. Now this stemmed from a few things. One, I was teased, mainly by boys actually, about my weight in high school. I remember in year 7, we had to weigh ourselves for PE, and one of the boys was hovering over the scale to see how heavy I was. I was so anxious to weigh myself, and when I finally did, he laughed and announced my weight to the class. Another thing was that everyone in my friend group at the time was also really slim and wore very flattering clothes, so I felt that I didn't fit in. Another factor was my home environment. From a young age, I was exposed to my mum never being satisfied by her weight and always feeling she had to lose the extra kilo, saying things like, "I'll be happy once I get down to 60 kilos, that's my goal," even though I thought she looked great. My grandma also made comments about how she weighed herself every day, and if she went up half a kilo, it had to come back down to 46. It could not go above that. This was paired with comments at the dinner table like, "Are you really going to eat more? I don't think you need to eat more, Nadia, you'll gain weight." And other things like, "Women look better when they're slimmer." Now, I'm not blaming my mum or my grandma, who I both love very much, for what was to come, but all of these factors I just mentioned combined led to me losing lots of weight by applying strict food rules. I would not allow myself to eat more than 1 fist's worth of food for my main meals, and I would only have a small piece of fruit for a snack, even when I was doing 5 days of intense exercise a week. This also led to body dysmorphia. Looking at the photo on the left, at the time, I thought I was fat. I'm just going to let that sink in. I thought I was fat. I mean, you can see my ribs. I was never satisfied with how I looked. I was restricting my food so much, I was constantly tired. In order to study when I got home, I had to have a nap, and I was constantly closing my eyes in class just to try catch up on sleep. If I could go back, I would tell my 13-year-old self that losing weight and being small was not going to make me happy and fix my insecurities. Having a poor body image means not allowing yourself to be satisfied with the way you look unless you reach a certain goal or look a certain way. But the reality is that satisfaction and happiness never truly come. That's why a positive food environment is essential to facilitate a healthy relationship with food and with ourselves. So in this slide, we've listed some tips on how you can create a positive food environment in your home. These may or may not work for you because ultimately you are in charge of your home and your family dynamic, and you may think of another few examples that will work for you.
Thanks, Nadia, for sharing your story. It's definitely not something that's super easy to talk about, but we are trying to break that stigma. So let's talk about peer acceptance. Most teenagers, definitely not all, but most, care a lot about what their friends think, say, and do. So, I mean, we all to some degree care about what others think of us. That's why we see love and belonging on Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. But the teenage brain is very vulnerable. It's very plastic, which means it can change, adapt, and respond to a range of different environmental cues. And these social pressures can play a major role on eating behaviors. Through social reinforcement, for example, peers may indirectly promote an ideal body shape. You know, "Doesn't Kelly look so good? I swear she's lost weight." And this might pressure teens to skip meals or diet. I remember when I was in year 10 and all the girls in my grade wanted to look their best for formal coming up. So we all thought it would be a good idea to create a 5 kilo challenge. In other words, who could lose 5 kilos the fastest. At the time, nobody questioned it. It was just something that everyone did without a second thought. But of course, thinking back now, I'm like, wow, that's quite terrible and alarming, especially because 5 kilos is such a significant amount of weight to lose at such a young age during a time of pivotal growth and development. So a lot of these desires to look a certain way are curated by social media. And that's why we're talking about this today. A high-quality study that looked at over 11,000 young adults found that the more that they used social media, the worse their body image was. This is because social media is a breeding ground of comparison. We can accidentally find ourselves comparing our appearance, our holidays, our whole lives against what we see online. I've got a quote here from the study itself. Social media has the ability to foster a space of heightened self-feelings, of self-judgment, and body dissatisfaction. As you can see, this is because we are constantly exposed to picture-perfect photos on the most popular social media apps today. These are Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok, which are all image and video based. So these kids are constantly exposed to these attractive, edited, and filtered images of celebrities, influencers, and friends. They look at the comments and they're filled with appearance-related compliments. They look at the number of likes. This all has a potentially harmful effect on someone's body image and self-worth. When teens derive their sense of self through comparison with other people, they engage in what we call an upward social comparison. Because when we compare ourselves, we are placing ourselves as inferior to what we see, which can be really harmful to a person's self-esteem. It generates negative and anxious thoughts or greater feelings of shame about our bodies and physical appearance. Social comparison leaves us losing sight of our own value, disconnected from our relationships, and feeling flat and upset. The reason we compare is because deep down we feel we lack something or are jealous of something someone else has. We're all guilty for comparing ourselves to what we see online, but telling your kids to cut out social media cold turkey is a very difficult reality, and we understand that. So we provided some tips for how you can help your teens stay confident and self-assured online. If you're concerned about the types of accounts that they follow, talk to them about doing a following list clean out. Talk to them about the benefits of unfollowing accounts that may make them feel worse about themselves, whether it's a celebrity or an influencer or even a friend. Encourage your teens to compete with themselves instead, and that it's okay to admire others as long as they aren't devaluing themselves in the process. Ask them what steps are they taking to improve on themselves every day. You could also talk to them about the realities of digital manipulation and how these photos are often edited and filtered. And finally, research does show that modeling good behaviors is very powerful. Instead of telling your kids to stop going on their phones at dinner, do the behavior yourself, and eventually they may follow. Everyone is affected by body image. In the previous webinar, we spoke about how your dietary patterns can influence your kids. It isn't easy reflecting on your own relationships and attitudes towards your body, but it may be worthwhile to be conscious of some of the messages you may be sending your kids. I used to work with a woman who had 3 daughters, and I remember her telling me how excited she was to take her eldest daughter bikini shopping when she turned 13. But the daughter didn't actually want to wear a bikini because she never saw her mum wearing one. And this broke her heart because she was so excited and she had no idea that her insecurities had any sort of effect on her daughter. Everyone deserves to have a positive body image. We have some tips here if you're interested.
If you're concerned that your child may not have the best relationship with food or their body image, here are 8 early signs to look out for. So to summarize, encourage open conversations about body image and let's destigmatize it. Talk about food and appearance in a positive way that helps foster a supportive environment for your teen during this vulnerable time of their life. And talk about social media and how it might be impacting them and how you also might feel about it yourself. Thank you for watching.